Hello and welcome to Connected With Latham, where we discuss ideas, legal developments, and business trends shaping the global economy. I'm Haim Zaltzman, partner and global vice chair of Latham's Emerging Companies and Growth Practice. In this episode, I'm joined by Rishi Kotiya, head of legal and corporate secretary, and Christy Schwartz, chief financial officer of Opendoor, a leading e-commerce platform for residential real estate transactions. Christy, Rishi, welcome to the episode.
Thanks, Haim.
Thanks, Haim. It's great to be here.
Before we dive into Opendoor, the leading iBuying site anywhere, I want the audience to get to know both of you, your backgrounds, your journeys, and what makes Rishi and Christy so exceptional. So Rishi, I'll start with you. What led you to join Opendoor?
Well, I love that question. I think for me, it's the mission of the company, first and foremost. If you think about the traditional method of how people sell their homes, it really puts a customer in a passive position. You have a house, you need to sell it, you have to list it, and then you have to wait for buyers to come, if they come at all, to sell your house. You know how long it's going to take. You don't know if once you have a buyer, whether it's going to fall out of escrow, you'll have to start over again. And as folks know, the longer a house sits on the market, the less valuable it is. So Opendoor flips that, and it just makes complete sense that it puts the seller in control. You get an offer from us. You decide whether you're going to accept it or not. You decide whether you're ready to sell it or not. And even when you're under contract, there's some flexibility of like when your move out dates can be. And that allows you to, in an ideal situation, allows you to coordinate to the extent that you're buying your next house. So for me, it just makes perfect sense. When you think about other industries, you think about Uber, right? Like that's taking a throwback industry and modernizing it.
Yep.
And we've just become so used to that convenience. And not even just Uber. If you think of like Carvana, you want to sell and buy a car, you also can do that with an app. So why not a house? So that challenge is really kind of what drew me to the company. And if you think about residential real estate, it's sort of one of the last big industries where we have the tools at our hands, at our fingertips to change the way we transact, and yet we still have not.
It's shocking because it is, I think it is the largest industry in the United States. Maybe there's a little debate whether it's healthcare or real estate. They're obviously both gigantic and it's amazing. We still sell houses like we did, decades and again, if not longer. It's amazing. Christy, how about you? I'll put the same question to you. What led you to join Opendoor?
Yeah, and just one thing before I get in there, one of the things Rishi just said that I think is so interesting, or just about Opendoor's position and navigating real estate, and it's one of the last industries to not be disrupted. I think the other thing people don't appreciate from the outside is that there's also a lot of players within the real estate industry that are still on ancient systems, right? And so like all the utility providers that we have to partner with, the way property taxes work in various jurisdictions, there's like so much there beyond just our product. And so it's such a huge problem and so much to solve there. To me, I joined in August 2016, and just backing up a little before that. So in 2015, I was the controller at Yodlee in Redwood Shores, and we sold to InvestNet later that year. And that was kind of the moment where I was ready to start looking for something new. Spent my whole career in Silicon Valley, but I had yet to really work at a startup. And so I really wanted to go work at a startup. And I had a short list of criteria that I looked for in my next job. I wanted to go to a true disruptor. So at that time, like Airbnb was young, but really exciting. Stripe was young and exciting. Uber was new on the scene relatively. And I wanted to go work for another company that had kind of that same potential to completely revolutionize an industry. Yep. And what Opendoor was trying to do, like really spoke to me. I was like, they are taking a really big swing for the fences. And if they can do what they're setting out to do, this is going to be huge. I wanted to go somewhere I was excited about the product, something I could relate to. So I liked real estate, as Rishi was kind of sharing. Like I had just bought my first condo, and that process was relatively painful. I really liked the buyer side of our product, where like you can go visit a home on your own without an agent, and you can go out on your way home from work or on your lunch break or whatever. When we bought our condo, we had like a toddler. And so we were going to all the open house showings, which are also right at peak nap time. And so we would like take turns running in and out of the properties while like our toddler was asleep in the back seat. So like our condo, we actually never saw it together, my husband and I,
That's great.
until we were in contract. And then we like got to go do a walkthrough on our own terms at our own timeline. So excited about the product, a true disruptor. The people, like I really wanted to work somewhere where the people were physically close together. You maybe were in the same room and the same meetings as the founders. There was just kind of that energy and excitement that was shared by the group. I wanted to go somewhere where finance played a critical role. There's a lot of software companies, and finance is not always the most important function at a software company. But in real estate, we're moving a lot of money, and finance is a really important piece of that.
As a transactional finance lawyer, I appreciate finance playing a huge role for you guys. It's keeping me and many a lawyer busy. Thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely. And then early enough stage, I wanted to feel like I could really make an impact as we're building. And then finally, the commute. Like I was really particular about my commute. I lived in the city and I wanted to work in the city. And I also had like parameters of how far south of Market I would go. And so Opendoor at the time was 116 New Montgomery. And that was like right at the edge of my parameters. And so all those things brought me to Opendoor.
That's amazing. I mean, I want to focus on one thing you said, particularly about the disruptor. It's a theme we hear a lot in Silicon Valley. It's obviously consistent, but one thing that I found very interesting in what you said is that you not only disrupt your main target, which is housing, it's everything that has to do with it. So I would love to hear, is that part of the Opendoor strategy? Is that part of everything you think? It's like, oh, I'm not only going to disrupt the actual home buying, but in order to do that effectively and be sticky and be successful, I have to touch utilities. I have to touch the underlying financing, the mortgages that folks get. I have to touch the electric, or I have to touch, keep on going, everything that has to do with it. Is that a constant theme at Opendoor and a huge focus for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to be. And so yeah, like kind of what can we build in house, or what do we need to like get through our partner network? So for example, one of the things we're doing right now is we have a third party that helps us do our inspections at all our homes, because we expanded back in at the end of Q4-ish into all zip codes in the lower 48, give or take.
Is that right? Well,
Yes.
congrats. That's
Yes.
that's amazing. Yeah.
And we did that without having boots on the ground that can reach all of those zip codes. So part of the way you do that is through your partner network. And so we have a really strong partner that we work with on inspections who can get to a home relatively quickly and conduct the inspection for us. And so, yeah, that is something in the real estate ecosystem. We are still cracking the code on utilities. I feel like there's like, it gets better and better, but there's still like, a fair amount to navigate. And it's like, there's still some utility providers where you have to show up with like a check in hand and like a power of attorney or letter of authorization in order to open a utility bill at this home, And so like we haven't fixed that all the way, but like we've definitely made a lot of strides.
Yeah, as the corporate secretary, I maybe once a week I'm at the UPS down the street from our office getting something notarized because a utility provider needs like a notarized.
The notary system still shocks me. I mean, it is much better here than in Europe, where it is still like just formal things on like final documentation. It's an unbelievable process in some of these places. You know where it came from. It wasn't original to us. Well, look, that raises one of the questions I have. I'll ask of each of you, Rishi and Christy, is you're mentioning obviously the complexity of home buying, everything that has to do around it. Opendoor is obviously what the public sees, their access to the website, things that say are very clear, but there's clearly a lot of technical, a lot of math, a lot of finance and how to hold inventory, how to sell it, the pricing, etc. Which means obviously there's many a smart person at Opendoor that's helping you guys figure this out. So with that background in mind, who do you think is the biggest nerd at Opendoor? And I'll start with you, Rishi.
Good question. We have many nerds. As you said, it's a very complicated business across many different disciplines. I'd say our chief nerd is Kaz, our CEO, and it's great. It's great. His ability to look at the big picture and then drill down into details. His ability to like respond to like Slacks, not just Slacks, but like threads, like 20 messages deep. and then dig into
That is a skill. I do want to tell you, like being able to follow email and respond later on. That's a huge skill.
He misses nothing. Like I feel like you'll put something in a thread and then like the first person to like comment on it will be Kaz.
That's right. But yeah, we've got people across pricing and data. I'm always so impressed by folks' ability to synthesize large data sets and draw conclusions from it. I don't know about you, Christy.
Yeah, Christy, who in your account is the biggest nerd?
I think it's Yang, our head of pricing. He has done amazing things for the way we look at homes and how quickly we synthesize data and feedback and then iterate on it. And so he's really shined a big light on our pricing, how the results of our pricing work, that down to the individual underwriter and how that individual underwriter is performing. And so the way he's measured things, the way he's rewarded things, the way he's iterated on things, and he's so passionate about it. And then like the way he picks up on trends in the market and just how he thinks about things. And I think what makes him like probably even more of a nerd is like how he geeks out with like his children. So I forget how old they are, but they're young. They're like 2 and 4. And he super geeks out because his daughter like is learning to play chess, or she is starting to like demonstrate like a certain type of reasoning that now he can like push her to that next level. Like it's in him, and then he's like passing it through to his future generation.
Yeah, he is great. Yeah, one thing I'll add there, Yang is definitely a super nerd, but what kind of sets him apart and other people in the business is that it's not just the ability to nerd out and get deep in the details, but you got to be able to explain it in like layman's terms and like from first principles. And like that's the skill that's not everyone has. And it's not tied necessarily to like how well you know something. It's like how well can you kind of emphasize why this is important to the business.
I mean, I want to double click on that. I've heard it from others. The most effective, I think, people generally in business, but particularly in Silicon Valley, are ones who have that technical, scientific, whatever nerd skill is, but can actually have the EQ to communicate it outwardly. And so, yeah, it's pretty amazing. But I do think that that's a skill set that does make you a super nerd. I'm going to have to use that. The super nerd is maybe that'll be a future iteration, another podcast. I'll have who's a nerd and who's a super nerd and can be able to communicate it. It's pretty cool.
Well, and I think one of the keys too is the objectivity of it too, like being able to look at data and not take it personally, like and being able to learn from data and learn from things without it being a reflection of your failure. Like it's more just like, hey, this is what the data is telling me. I'm going to try it differently and see what that produces, and then I'm going to learn from that and learn again and learn more. And there's no like ego involved. It's very like data driven.
Yeah, there's no bad data. You just got to take what it is and absorb it. Do it. It's pretty amazing. Super nerd. I love it. So let's jump into the next kind of set of questions. So we move from the personal to more the Opendoor overview, which is where I want to take us now. Rishi, I'll start with you. You are a lawyer. I'm a lawyer, so I appreciate you lawyering as you do. You obviously have to balance a lot of things. Yeah. So what's Opendoor's approach to that balance, to new projects? How do you, and I'll add a little bit more here. How do you think of return versus liability? How do you think of ultimate mission versus short-term tactics, i.e. speed, which I know is very important in Silicon Valley generally, and I know from working with you guys is extremely important at Opendoor. How do you balance that legal element, the liability, the risk mitigation with the commercial speed, the need to get things done, the execution, which I'm sure Kaz and others focus you on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I come back to, as a team, we try to start with mission. Our mission is to tilt the world in favor of homeowners, make the transaction fairer, more transparent, more efficient. We start there, and then we think about the customer. So when we're thinking about like balancing risk versus speed or risk versus a business objective, ultimately, like we have a customer in mind and what is best for them, because it informs like what kind of risk you want to take on a certain issue. Like ultimately, can we justify that this is like in the best interest of the customer? Then you work from there to figure out a creative way to kind of get to where the business wants to be without jeopardizing anything on the legal side. So that's where we start. And
is it, do you tilt one way or the other? Do you allocate risk one way or the other? Is it more towards, hey, let's move faster and I'll make sure the liability is there? Or is it, let's make sure liability, or is it just a combo depending on the situation?
Well, I think we start with speed. We start with what's best for the business, and then we assess liability. So
You guys are an Opendoor is the F1 of real estate transactions.
if you think about, I mean, the stuff that we've been talking about, I mean, utilities is one, but then this kind of gets to your question earlier. It's like we're not just trying to make the transaction better for customers. I mean, if you think about, just put a finer point on that piece of it, transaction costs are like 6 to 10% of the real estate transaction. On a median home, that could be anywhere between $18,000 and $30,000, right? So you start there, but then you look at, okay, what are the different components of those transaction costs? It's, you think about mortgage or title and escrow and title insurance. Those are all sort of pieces of this puzzle that have their own regulatory framework and their own customs as to how things are done. And we are living in a world now with technology changing day to day. And so there's going to be friction there. And part of that is being nimble. So you start with speed, and then you'd look at the liability and what's rules on the books. What do other people do? And how can we kind of make sure that we're okay, but still push the envelope? And you've got to be comfortable with a little bit of discomfort, or a lot of discomfort, really.
Discomfort I always tell my kids, if it was easy, somebody else would do it.
Mhm.
It's a constant reminder. Well, speaking of discomfort, or maybe journeys that are discomforting, Christy, it's been an incredible journey. I mean, the fact that you've been here since 2016 at Opendoor is pretty amazing. I'm not going to make you talk about all those years, but in the last 2 or 3 years, which has obviously been pretty monumental, both for Opendoor as well as for the global economy, the real estate market, rates, AI, you name it. What's evolved for Opendoor the most in the last couple of years?
I mean, a lot. I think part of the reason I'm still here after almost 10 years, not quite, I guess a little over 9, is because it's constantly evolving. Like every time I think we have got it all figured out and we're like, it's just going to be smooth sailing. Something else is changing, either for us as a business and being a new public company a few years ago, or just the real estate market correction, or now with new leadership, all those things. So, part of what keeps me going and keeps me here is the constant evolution of both the industry and the company. I've been with Opendoor through 3 really distinct phases. Like when I first got here in 2016, it was absolutely a startup. Like tons of energy. People were all in. We ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner at work. The founders were still in the building, and we were just moving fast and building the plane in flight, and lots of swarm soccer. Something would go wrong and everyone would kind of run after that, and we'd fix it all together. And then the next thing would happen and we'd all fix it all together. But it was just like crazy energy, dedication, focus, and a really like exciting time for the business as we were really growing fast and finding our place in the world. And then we became a new public company. That was a whole, phase. And then, but pretty quickly after that, the real estate market corrected. And so then we really reevaluated all of the processes we put in place when things were moving really quickly, and, making things more efficient, right sizing costs, offshoring some costs, like just really kind of correcting the overall cost structure of the business, which was like good, important work, but probably not like the funnest part of our journey. But that was an important phase. And that was kind of the phase that we were in when then retail investors came along and gave us like this new refreshed view on the company and kind of gave us a second life. I mean, there was a little bit of self-fulfilling prophecy in there of there's all this energy behind the stock, and that allows us to attract new talent and new voices and new visions. It allowed us to bring in Kaz. And so now we're in like this really special phase of the company that I'm really excited about, where you kind of have the founder startup energy because Kaz is just so personally invested in the business, like both, mentally and literally. And so you have this crazy energy and focus from him that then permeates to the whole business. But it is a public company with good resources, really strong, experienced talent, and really good approaches to things, and how quickly we are able to like iterate and learn from things. And so that combination is really powerful. So the talent we're able to attract, the focus, the accountability, and the dedication of the people that are coming in is enabling us to execute and iterate at incredible speed.
And that's been the great salute. Your ability to do everything that you need to do at Mach 3, whatever is there now.
I mean, yeah, there's times where I feel behind or I'm like, oh, I didn't get this thing done. And then I'll go meet with a board member or I'll talk to someone who's a little bit removed and they'll they're like, no, but you guys just did this, and this in one quarter. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a lot, huh? But you're so in it that you just go and then you kind of have to step out and take inventory of what you just did and you realize that it was a lot.
Yeah, I feel the same. Yeah, I have to remind the legal team of that too, where it's oh, we've forgotten what we did.
You don't have to remind Latham Watkins to our team. It's been one of the most amazing rides ever with maybe any client that I've had the privilege of it. So I appreciate you guys keeping us around for during this process, but also it's been amazing seeing the evolution, the obstacles, right? The market has been, to say, crazy with obviously COVID hitting and then the post-COVID rate impacts and the inflation. But yeah, you guys have been on to say the least, an unbelievable trajectory. It's cool. So we know where you've been. Obviously, the world is crazy now. Still, I want to remind people that it was never smooth or easy. This is just a relic of our imagination. So, Rishi, what's the most challenging aspect now when you get a little bit more into the current trends? Is it tech company specific issues that you're having at Opendoor? Is it the broader macro level challenges, the economy, inflation, rates? Is it the government regulatory regime, changes from prior administration? What's keeping you up now out of all of those things?
I think all those things are still on the table and important. There's one aspect to the job that is relatively new, and that is that housing affordability has become a hot topic, both at the federal level, across party lines, and in the states as well. So there's now a new component to what legal does with regard to the government relations. And so getting in front of that, making sure that our message is heard loud and clear, that Opendoor is on the side of homeowners. You look at data in 2025, for example, 99% of the customers we're buying from and selling to are individual homeowners. So
basically almost all of them, 98% are individual homeowners.
In the recent times. And we don't buy homes and then convert them to rentals or reselling them on the market. So making clear to policymakers that we are part of the solution for unblocking the stuck housing market. We're creating liquidity in the market. We are bringing people into transactions that may otherwise would have just stayed on the sideline. So if you think of what I said earlier about how you take a passive transaction process and flip it, you put sellers in control, you can bring people into a transaction that may otherwise have said, you know what, I don't want to waste a month of my time. I don't have the money or I don't have the time to try to renovate or clean up my house before putting on the market, things like that. So we're just trying to get our message out there. And you think about where we are, if you think of real estate and technology compared to, say, fintech, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was a question, I think, amongst lawmakers of what did all these different players do? And no one asks that question anymore in fintech, or they don't do it as much. But in housing, they do. So we hear Opendoor's we still have a question of what do you do? And we went to, we did meetings on Capitol Hill in March with staffs of various folks in Congress. And I'd say 50% of them are very familiar with it, or 50% have a very kind of just a general idea of what they do.
I mean, that's an answer I haven't had, is that the messaging has been the hardest thing in this market. It makes sense because there is obviously a lot of noise about the real estate market generally. Affordability is obviously the catchphrase and maybe the word of the year. By the way, if it does end up being the time word of the year, I want you guys to know I called it, just FYI. But yeah, 100%. That's super interesting. Christy, I'm going to ask slightly different from you. A very small thing called AI infra, AI, great AI reindustrialization is what I call it. It's amongst us. It's obviously taking up a lot of oxygen everywhere. How is Opendoor positioned to navigate this new great AI reindustrialization? What are you guys doing, and what should we expect from Opendoor on the AI front?
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly it is moving, even just from when like in September when Kaj joined to like where we are now and how I've seen the industry change, in the CFO communities, it went very quickly from like, how are you using AI or what are you guys doing? Or, what ideas do you have to like, how are you paying for AI? How are you budgeting AI? How much money does your CTO want to spend on AI? And so these conversations are evolving really rapidly. We're all in on AI, and the way we think about it is very much on like deliverables and impact, and less like we don't celebrate like, oh, this person used the most tokens this month, or this person ran up the bill this much this month. Like it's very much like this group or this person delivered this thing and it allowed us to free up these three people to go do something else. And so that's one way we've thought about it.
Actually, that's very cool.
It's also changed a little like who we hire. Like I just recently hired an accountant that had no accounting experience. They're really good with data and like using large amounts of data and making sense of the data and writing Python and SQL and using AI to analyze data and whatever. And so they're going to do accounting for me, but their background was not traditional accounting. It's more that they're going to be able to like automate things that we've thought of as traditional accounting. So it's influencing like who we hire and what the required skill sets are.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. I want to double click on that because it comes up a lot. You still need the function, but who you hire, utilize, employ, whatever verb we want to use for it, is now has changed dramatically because AI has now positioned folks with different skill sets to do the substance of what you're doing that used to be a very limited pool of people. And therefore you could get significantly better people. You can get them in there faster. They could actually push the envelope on stuff because they're not, limited by the old school of what they're doing. Do you guys do that by design, or is that just more you, or is that the Opendoor thinking about it? Because it's pretty revolutionary to hear that decoupling of, the substantive direct experience education with AI. This person now has the ability to be an AI warrior to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few things there. Like one is when you ask by design, like we did a big hiring blitz in Toronto recently. And the business was going there to hire multiple things, but my team, we were looking for accountants. And so that's kind of where this happened, where as you started meeting people and you realized, okay, well, these are the things that I need to get done. And and you meet these really great candidates and they bring different backgrounds and they showed up for different reasons. Like some of them follow Kaz on Twitter. Some of them saw the post on LinkedIn, or they saw different things and they showed up, and you kind of, I think because of AI, you almost have the opportunity, AI and technology as it is now, you have the opportunity to hire a person rather than a skill set. Like you're not like, okay, I need someone who has done this and has this degree and, can check all these boxes. And then hopefully I like them as a person and hopefully they're smart. And then if they do all those things, then I'll hire them. And it's almost like the inverse of like, this person's really creative, they're really smart, and they know how to use technology and AI. And because of all those things, they can now meet this skill set. Sure. So that's one thing. It wasn't necessarily by design. It almost like happened. Two, an answer to your earlier comment, like I think of it as you still have your subject matter experts. Like we just had someone start who was at the Big Four. He served in their national office. He's like a really technical accountant, but I probably don't need a lot of him. Like I need someone like that who can lead the technical accounting function, but then he can be supplemented with AI, with people who have less accounting background or less technical background, whatever. But I still think you need those subject matter experts to lead the function and ensure overall compliance and that education is there and experience. But you maybe don't need as many of that same skill set.
Obviously, that will dovetail into, we'll talk a little bit later, the value of education and the things that it does. But it sounds like there's still room for the educational, the substance, but AI changes the ability to implement it significantly, which is really cool. Christy, I'm going to stick with you since you're mentioning hiring, because whenever I think of hiring, I think of dollars, costs, utilization. What are you doing now as the CFO at Opendoor? Where are you focusing your capital allocation? Where are you focusing the dollars?
Yeah, and I think right now we're running a tight ship. We need to make the most of the capital that we have, and we are on a mission to return to adjusted net income profitability. And so, as we're navigating that, we're running a very tight ship on our costs. And so, that kind of, that's a starting point, right? Like if somebody wants to spend money, it's kind of like either on on a person or on software or whatever, on a new lease, like whatever it is. Why is this necessary? What does it add? Can this be done with AI? Like, is there a better, cheaper way to do this? If it's software, like, does it actually need to be this discrete, bespoke software, or is it something that we can build with what we already have available to us? I mean, right now, a lot of our attention for hiring is on engineers and like continuing to build and automate. I think we have a relatively lean engineering team and we do want to grow it because I do believe at its heart, like Opendoor is a software company. Like, there's the transaction is so complex and there are still so many manual processes and so many manual players that like the real way to solve all of this is with automation and software. And so when you talk about capital allocation, that's probably
That's where you're focused.
we're really focused. And then anything beyond that, it's like, okay, why is this necessary?
Yeah. I mean, Rishi, I'll swing with you just from there. We kind of get the lay of the land and the strategy. To call it what you guys are doing anything but ambitious would be an understatement for ambitious. You guys, I mean, we've repeated it over and over again here, so I'll repeat it again. The disruptor in the real estate industry, period. Channel changed the way homes are sold, both personally and professionally. I think to the huge advantage of the homeowner, where there's lots of inefficiencies. You guys mentioned them. 6-10% of every home sale is a transaction cost. That's egregious relative to other industries where you see these things. Given that ambitious strategy, how do you focus your legal resources and the collaborations that you help the partnerships to keep that ambition going and not be so to speak the brakes on it?
I was thinking about that earlier with one of Christy's response to the evolution of Opendoor. And you think about the legal team during these different phases of Opendoor. We've gone from, startup to becoming a public company, growing our legal team. And then when the market contracted in 2022, we slowly kind of brought down our headcount. And now we're kind of a small, lean team. I think we're 13 people on the business team, including myself, for a company that has 800 plus employees. And it's a complicated business. But what I've found is that with a small, lean team of highly engaged, competent legal professionals, attorneys, and non-attorneys, we're able to plug in to the different collaborations and different things that our business partners are doing and provide advice very clearly, simply. And Kaz likes to say this too. He's actually a lawyer too.
You do remind me of that. As a lawyer, I always think that CEOs are not lawyers, but it's actually he's a great lawyer success story on that front. Yeah.
So he always, his thing is, and I agree with this, is that the lawyer should get involved at the 20% mark of a product development or collaboration and then come back in at the end. Right. I mean, that doesn't always hold true if you're working on a transaction, right?
Yeah, sure.
But it does when you're thinking about a new product.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to think about it. You're there to check in, give clear advice, and then check in at the end to make sure it worked and not over micromanage all the way through the process.
Yeah, and I'm always impressed with, our team is fantastic. And I'll get a question like, is it okay to do X, Y, and Z? And I can go to the team and usually I'll get a response in like 5 minutes, like, yes, but worry about these two things. Yep. Yes, but worry about these things. And that's the response you need at that 20% mark. Hey, these are things to watch out for. We'll come back in and we'll give you more, we can give you more advice as we go along. But that's kind of what we do to unblock teams. It's not like, okay, but I'm going to go back and write you a 3-page memo. No, we're going to give you like 3 bullet points.
It's a very important thing for our younger associates, young partners to remember. That way of thinking really drives a lot of companies to be efficient. I mean, you guys take it to a next level. You're super tight. You're super, super smart about it. And you know what you need to do because you got to keep the train moving faster. But it's a really important lesson to keep. Speaking of lessons, one of the lessons is never have these podcasts last forever. So I'm going to jump to my favorite part of the podcast, the finale section. I call it the speed poker section. You guys get one answer. You can go into details on the answer, but I don't want any hedging on the actual answer. Okay. So there's no XYZ. I want one answer, keep it crisp. And then you can give me a little bit more on it if you want. So I'll start with you, Christy. What's the biggest professional obstacle you faced?
Video earnings calls.
Video earnings call. That's amazing. That was not what I was expecting. That was not on my bingo card. But please explain.
Well, just like that's a new muscle, right? Like it's very different, like to be on video and have to really think about like how you present. I mean, I watch myself and I think I look so serious. And I think, you guys are seeing me now and I'm like a relatively smiley, friendly person. And all these calls, it's like, and so it's just it's a totally different muscle from what you think of with like normal CFO roles.
Interesting. Rishi, biggest professional obstacle?
Mine is kind of switching from the mindset of having a problem to solve and sort of kind of changing what is possible. So as an example of that, I mean, I go back to some of the work we're doing in government relations. Like this was something that, I'm a corporate attorney by training. You give me a transaction, I can kind of help you structure it. You get stuck with some kind of liability issue, create a solution. But now the job is a bit more, it's different. It's that plus it's, okay, let's get the message of Opendoor out there. Let's think about what is actually possible in this ambitious mission. And that involves us changing the way people think about what's possible in real estate.
And so I personally love that, if I may. An obstacle that a lot of people don't realize is they limit themselves to their actual, what they think is their task, rather than the ultimate goal and mission of the organization that they're with, right? So whenever you're doing a job, you have to remember you got to sell, communicate, whatever word you want to use for it, verb you want to use for it, the ultimate mission and goal of the organization, because that's the hard part. That's where you ultimately have to get to. And I think many, definitely lawyers, but I think a lot of business professionals I deal with lose that track. They don't constantly sell it. They don't have the EQ to take it to the next level. So it's that. Yeah. That's cool.
And it's good to kind of see that the sort of dividends I get paid from doing those things. Like when you're working and you're solving a problem, we want to be efficient. And that's part of what we do as being fast. But there's certain other things that you don't think are valuable in the moment, but they pay dividends later on. And part of that is meeting people, getting your message out there. You may talk to someone 3-4 times, and then the fifth time they know who you are, and all of a sudden it clicks. Like those things take time. They take time away from your day-to-day work, but they're more valuable.
Interesting. So next question, one answer. I'll start with you this time, Rishi. Ideal teammate. You get to pick one thing, one attribute: education, experience, or temperament. Which one?
Temperament, for sure.
That is the most common. Why? I mean, by the way, it always hurts me because my parents spent so much damn money on my education that whenever almost no one says education, it kills me. I actually don't think anyone said education, but temperament. Why?
Yeah, so temperament, like low ego people who want to get to the right answer and rather than be right, is like, that's table stakes, like for us. And it's table stakes, but it's hard to find people who can do that systemically. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying about Yang and how you're going to be wrong. The data might be wrong, or something happens, but like, even if you're super smart, are you kind of humble, low ego enough to say, oh, I messed that up. Let's try something else. And you need that in a company like ours and what we're trying to do. You can't be worried about failure. And I think being low ego.
Temperament is for Rishi. Christy?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with temperament as well, because I think education and experience got you to where you are now, but like I'm working with who you are now. And cool. I think my temperament piece, maybe more specifically too, is people who distinguish fact from opinion. Like I think there's so many things that we treat as fact, like Kaz said we need to do this thing, or because of SOX we have to do this thing, or I can't get the vendor won't do this thing, and like there's so much that that gets packaged up as fact when it's really like opinion or a blocker or just like a mindset. And so people who can think through that and be like, but why? Like, why are we doing that thing? And like, and can challenge kind of the commonly held beliefs or just like the things that we've labeled as fact that are actually changeable.
Interesting. You guys are both chose temperament, which is the most popular one when I ask this question for sure. But you both look at it slightly different. For you, it's ability to step back, be humble. For you, it's ability to actually use it as a way to basically fuel the intelligent answer, the ability to get to it. So critical thinking. Yeah. Cool. So speaking of critical thinking, great segue. I love poker. Sometimes I do really well. Usually my goal in every poker that I play is not to win it all, is just to get to the final table, because that shows you're a really good player, because it's really hard to win it all. That's random, but being consistent. So I love for you guys, you're sitting at Opendoor today, you're at the table, and you get the chance to change or adjust one thing, only one thing. Is it the game itself, which is the broader economy? Is it the table, the real estate industry? Is it the house, the regulatory regime, government fiat, regulations? Is it the stack of chips, how much cash you have and how you get to use it and pay it? Or is it the other players? Are certain folks not playing fair? If they aren't, don't name them, but you can tell us generally. Is it not coordinated enough? Are folks not communicating within the industry to get the end goals that we all want? So I'll start with you, Christy. Which piece of the poker table do you want to change?
I think I'm going to go with the table itself, or the real estate industry. And by that, I mean kind of what we talked about earlier of like, I know other players is another option, but the other players in the industry specifically, like if the utilities were just like super easy to turn off and on and pay, and like if property tax, like if all those other components were super streamlined, that would be awesome. And then I think our part in it too, like I want to just like fully have a fully scaled mortgage product already. And I want to have all the other things that come along with the home owning transaction. I want them to all be at the table with me.
Interesting. Rishi, what part?
Mine's the house, I would guess, like regulatory regime.
You guys are playing the roles. I love it. I love the CFO and okay, all right.
I mean, like the regulatory regime has not caught up with where we are with regard to technology. You look at disclosure obligations are different in each state. Some states still don't permit remote notarization. So if you're trying to like close on a house and you can't have someone come to your house to do a notary, you got to go to somewhere, to an office, a physical space to notarize documents in order to finalize your mortgage. I mean, you can just imagine that's just like wasted time. So, and then when you look at title and escrow, and there it's like, again, you got every state has a different regime. And you think about like even title insurance, and this is one that we actually are chipping away at. So title insurance it's an interesting thing, because you're not insuring for something that's happened future. You're insuring about something that might have happened in the past, with like a title defect on a property. So like, is insurance like really the best answer here? Like, do consumers really need to be paying hundreds or thousands of dollars for an insurance policy? Or can you diligence that effectively with technology? You can now, but there are still like title recording offices are still state by state, in some cases county by county.
Yeah, municipalities. That's right. It's crazy.
So if you can change that, if you can modernize like rules, can you create some kind of uniform standard at a federal level for how mortgage should operate, or title and escrow? That would be incredibly impactful.
Right. Well, if the policymakers are listening, you guys have the answers for them with these two poker table situations. So we just had a great lunch. Just for the audience, I brought in some of my favorite Wise Sons bagels, as I always do. I love my bagels. What do you eat at work or while playing poker? Playing poker means outside. You don't have to technically be at the poker table. What do you do? So Rishi, what's your favorite foods?
So at work, I feel like I'm obsessed off of these like fruit snacks we have in the kitchen. These Welch's fruit snacks.
As a parent, I want to tell you that is not the healthiest answer.
Well, I can attest to that, because Rishi often comes to meetings with a bag of fruit snacks, and then I look at him and I go, "Those look good." Like I eat some fruit snacks.
Delicious. Yeah,
That's hilarious.
Packs of those a day.
And that's at work. What is your favorite food outside of work? If it's fruit snacks again, I'm going to have some questions here.
Definitely not. Well, I mean, if I'm at the poker table, usually it's, like to have some samosas, like good Indian food. I live in the East Bay, and it's actually surprisingly hard to find good Indian food in like the Oakland.
Yeah, you have to head down in the South Bay. That's where it's out in the Fremont, Santa Clara, San Jose area. I was just there last week or 2 weeks ago, and it's amazing. The best Indian food. That's cool. Well, I'll tell you, it's hard to it's fine if you're playing poker late because then you go to sleep. But if you're doing it in the middle of the day with a really good samosa and some food, it's hard to recover. Or maybe I just can't do it in my old age. Christy, food, what do you got?
So at work, I love ordering Goop salads. Goop is Gwyneth Paltrow's company. So in addition to acting and beauty products, she also makes amazing salads. So I eat Gwyneth salads. And then I don't play poker, but I play mahjong. We actually just played last night, and we got takeout from Mama Hoo Hoo, the Chinese restaurant.
That's cool. Chinese food. So Chinese food I love it. I always spill for some reason. I don't know why. It's like one of those things. I know it's embarrassing because I'm a fully grown adult male, but I for some reason I struggle. Anyways, well, look, Rishi, Christy, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me on this Connected with Latham podcast. Really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for checking out this episode of Connected with Latham. You can subscribe and listen to new and archived episodes of Latham's podcast on lw.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. If you have questions or would like additional information, please email us using the links located in the show description. We hope you'll join us again next time. Thank you.
This podcast is provided as a service of Latham & Watkins LLP. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between you and Latham & Watkins LLP, and you should not send confidential information to Latham & Watkins LLP. While we make every effort to assure that the content of this podcast is accurate, comprehensive, and current, we do not warrant or guarantee any of those things. And you may not rely on this podcast as a substitute for legal research and/or consulting a qualified attorney. Listening to this podcast is not a substitute for engaging a lawyer to advise you on your individual needs. Should you require legal advice on the issues covered in this podcast, please consult a qualified attorney. Under New York's Code of Professional Responsibility, portions of this communication contain attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome. Results depend upon a variety of factors unique to each representation. Please direct all inquiries regarding the conduct of Latham & Watkins attorneys under the New York's disciplinary rules to Latham & Watkins LLP, 1271 Avenue of the Americas, New York, New York, 10020. Phone number 1-212-906-1200.